Cheers, hi, I'm back with the 24 books of 2024. We're going to some great Yarmouth. As by Michael Morpurgo, who I've met, he is lovely. And Outlaw, the true story of Robin Hood. Okay, so it's a kid's book, but I love Robin Hood mythologies. And just to see how they take the actual text, the actual craft, and kind of weave something original. Now, first of all, this is a children's book. However, how it's done is very, very clever. Some nice subversions here. So, um, lost in a dark, strange forest, Robin is rescued by a crew of misfits. He yearns to seek justice against his cruel oppressors to find and defeat the Sheriff of Nottingham once and for all. After a fierce storm, a boy of today discovers a human skull buried beneath the roots of an ancient tree. A skull with a legendary past, the true story of Robin Hood. And I like that. Now, I started off with this boy. He's absolutely unnamed, right? So it could be anyone. Interestingly, okay, he has white hair, which is an interesting kind of twist. Wherever this boy is, it gets further along. If he's Robin Hood's reincarnation, or Robin Hood's direct descendant, right? So I get further along. So white hair is very, very unusual as we get further along. So anyway, it starts off with a fierce storm, okay, and the storm is said, it makes me think of the Great Storm of 1987, okay? So, it's bit here, right? There had been a storm like it. The wind roared in from the west one evening in late October. No one was expecting it, least of all the forecasters. I think that's an allusion to 1987, the Great Storm, okay? The ground was saturated by weak continuous rain could not hold the trees in place. So when this boy, unnamed boy, goes to see his tree, as a tree in the forest, which is 500 years old, and it's his tree, right? That's what he considers it. And the tree has been felled, right? And under the tree, he finds a skeleton and some other artifacts. And it's quite interesting to you because at this time where this boy passes out, it cuts to Robin Hood. Now, Robin Hood at the same time is actually having a dream of the boy. So, is Robin Hood flashing forward to his direct descendant or his future reincarnation? We never really get an answer to that, and I do actually appreciate the ambiguity to this. Right, here you go. Right, right. The boy dropped the skull back into the earth. It rolled into the bottom of the crater, rolling over and over until it was last. So he stood at last, gazing up at the sky and then at him. Now at last Robin knew. Those empty staring eyes were his eyes. He was the skull, but he was the boy too. He was both. He was the boy sitting on the rock, the arrowhead in his hand, and he was the skull lying in the earth. Right. He remembered everything now, everything so he could save himself. He promised himself all of that. Right. Before he woke, and he once forgot the single thing he had dreamed. Right. So, Robin of the past and the glimpse of his future, okay, of where his body will be uncovered. We're never really sure, okay. But of course, his father Martin and Robin, they've been hunting the king's deer. So Martin is captured, and that's where in this Sherwood forest he meets Marion. It's very, very interesting, okay, when you meet Marion. I've never seen this description of Maid Marion before, and I like this. I really thought this is clever. Right, here we are. I am Marion. She was a young woman and not a girl at all, and I wish she would not stare at me like that. Her hair was white, not silver like an old person's, not fair as his mother had been, but white, pure white. Her eyes seemed to glow red in the early morning sun. You're an outlaw, aren't you? He breathed. Right. So Marion is, she has albinoism. The merry men, well, at this point, they're not going for the merry men, okay? The outlaws in Sherwood Forest, okay? They are dwarfs, they are hunchbacks, they are basically people who, um, basically the people, the unfortunates of society, if you will, especially for this time period. Now, they actually lived quite happily in Sherwood, and then in Nottingham, and then when Prince John came along, he made it hard for them. He overtaxed them. He pushed them out into the forest where nature would claim them, and instead they become a band of outlaws. Right. So that's the thing. You never ever hear a description of the merry men, if you will, right, of being described as such. And I thought it was very, very clever. Very kind of what made these people go into Sherwood Forest. Well, it's not the fact that okay, they were overtaxed and they were struggling just to survive. These individuals truly, truly were. Right. It's a bit here, okay? A motley bunch of misfits, aren't we? Said Will Scarlet. Here you go. There's me, a hunchback, and there's half a dozen more the same. There's white-haired cargoes, albinos, call them what you will, like Marion. A simple folk who talk to the moon and puddles. There's lepers, there's one-leg beggars, blind, deaf, dumb, we're all here, all misfits, all outlaws. Right, yeah. So it's a very, very interesting take on the kind of main man mythos, if you will. Of course, Robin manages to free his father, and his father's actually blinded as well. So his father's blind, but managed to free him by Robin knocks out. Actually, no, he actually kills a guard. Right, he kills a guard. He dresses up in the armor, rescues his father, and they kind of make the decree. Okay, and it's quite interesting to get the devotion to good King Richard. Now, it's quite interesting because this is a thing going through virtually every single Robin Hood mythos, that King Richard is away fighting the Crusades, if you will, and then, of course, while he's back, Prince John is now running the kingdom, and then there's the Sheriff of Nottingham, Guy of Gisbourne, and everyone is absolutely overtaxed. Okay, there you go. Right. Tell him that, unlike him, we should take only what a man can afford to pay. Tell him that with the taxes we take, we should feed the hungry and clothe the poor. And tell the sheriff this too, that when good King Richard returns from the holy wars, he should know the sheriff's tyranny. I shall tell him face to face myself. Go now. The sheriff backed away, but did not turn to one. Who are you? Robin of Sherwood, Robin Hood, son of Martin, who eyes the sheriff have blinded forever. And they go before I change my mind. So that's it. Hence begin the mythos of Robin Hood. Robin Hood takes from the poor, gives to the needy. We all know the story. We all know the story, okay? And the thing is more people actually start to leave Nottingham, actually join them in Sherwood Forest. It starts to get his own kind of brethren, right? Here we are. He called it the Sherwood tax. It was the outlaws that ruled in Sherwood now, and in so future all taxes will be paid to them, not to the sheriff. So he invited to eat with the outlaws around the fire. The toast at the end of the meal was always the same, the return of good King Richard. Right, yes, Richard the Lionheart. So that's the thing, this mythos, this is growing for Robin Hood, and I absolutely love this kind of subversion. One thing I absolutely love is many versions of Robin Hood don't really go all out to show how violent this is. Now, this is very, very violent. How it's told is very simplistic terms, but makes it clear people are blinded, people are maimed, people are killed, people are hung. I respected Michael Morpurgo very, very much for even writing this, because it's graphic but not over graphic. It's a way that a child would understand how graphic it could be. Here you go. And but the thing is this, of course, Marion is falling in love with Robin, right? Here we are. Maybe I love him as father loves his son, and you love him as a man as a woman. For the rest they worship him, and I wish they would not. Worship a God, not man. I fear it would be too much for him. Stay close to him, Marion. He will need you as a man needs his eyes. And that is true. Essentially, this whole kind of mythos of Robin Hood, it does actually start to impact Robin himself. Now, not in grandiosity, but the burden is so much on his shoulders. And I like that. I like how Robin, who's a very, very young man when this all begins, suddenly has this burden on his shoulders of what he has to do. He now has to rob the rich, give to the poor, actually give to the poor. And it's a burden on his soul. Very, very much. And one thing is this, now when Friar Tuck comes in, now my favourite version of Friar Tuck coming into the scene is either Robin Hood, the BBC TV show, okay, or Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, because I adore that Friar Tuck. He was hilarious, and he gets some of the best moments. Your sword was sold to Satan, your grace. You could instant men of witchcraft and let them die. It's 30 pieces of silver to play the devil, so to pay the devil for your way in hell. Yes, I'm quoting the Prince of Thieves. So anyway, so when Friar Tuck comes into this, now I just thought this was brilliant, is Friar Tuck arrives at the scene because he's got a calling from God, right? Because he ripped off the monastery he was in, right? He robbed the church, okay? So you robbed the church, did you? Yes, in a manner of speaking, and I tell you why. I stayed at the Fountains Abbey with the monks, I often do when I passed by. One Sunday morning from the pulpit, I spoke up for Robin Hood and his outlaws, for they were all doing for the poor, for the unloved, for those I dear loves more than anyone. Sheriff heard it, drove the monks and took the abbey from me, gave it over to the she-devil, the abbess of Kirkley. Sheriff to the sister, and Guy of Gisbourne's lover too. Did you know that? I may be a sinner, I drink too much, I know it, and my midriff out is my indulgence, but at least in one of the seven deadly sins, but compared to that which of an angel I tell you. So he robbed off the monastery. He robbed it. Bags full of gold and silver to get to Robin Hood and to actually join it. Okay? So, but the thing is this, is that Robin is the kind of guy who actually is willing to give people a chance in life. Okay? So, at one point, Robin actually kidnaps the sheriff and brings them to the enclave. That is something that's never ever been done in Robin Hood ever, right? And like I say, that blindfolds him, that's been done. But actually bring the enemy into their encampment to see this is what we are. Look how vast our numbers are. In a way, to actually intimidate the sheriff. But yeah, I just like this interesting twist on the tale. I thought it was very, very clever. Right, here we are. So the sheriff sat down with the outlaws and were obliged to eat the king's venison with them. As the ale flowed, the outlaws became wilder and wilder in their boisterous celebration, lampooned the sheriff to his face and cursing them roundly and Sir Guy of Gisbourne and Prince John and anyone who else came to mind. Right, at Little John's suggestion, they drank a defiant toast to the return of good King Richard, Richard the Lionheart, and death to the usurper. Right, and the thing is this, is that they actually give the sheriff a chance to even join them, join their enclave, join their encampment, and he turns it down. Once again, never been done before, ever. Okay? Normally the sheriff is just, out there evil. You think Alan Rickman because that's the best version ever, okay? But this actually inviting the sheriff to join them is so, so different. And is that the fact is that it is so good for a very, very brief time period for Robin. Once again, nice twist, nice subversion. It's a very, very cleverly written book. Here you go. Right. There were good times in Sherwood. More and more people flocked to Robin's cause, happy enough to enjoy the hardship of living in the forest, as long as they had the opportunity to fight the sheriff and Sir Guy of Gisbourne. Fight made Christians of them, whether they liked it or not, if not gender persuader. Between him and Malt and Robin, they made soldiers of them. Very, very interesting too. So people who join the encampment, join the merry men, they have to become Christians, right? They also have to become soldiers. So it's quite interesting too because, recruiting people to his banner, if you will, it's kind of like, well, suffer hardship with one, suffer hardship with the other. Which one is the lesser of the evils? A lot of people do go to Robin because they live for that freedom, right? Or the idea of freedom. And is when I say the Abbess of Kirkleaf, who is related and loves Sir Sheriff and also loves Sir Guy of Gisbourne. She actually joins the encampment pretending to be a abbess and then actually kidnaps Robin's son, Little Martin. So interesting thing as well how very, very few versions have brought in Robin Hood's children and they've become part of the story. Okay, here you go. They've taken him to Nottingham. They're expecting you to come after him, Robin. They're not going to be expecting me. We have surprise on our side, and haven't you told me that in war, and this is what surprises everything. Once again, bringing Marion into it. Marion is not some kind of like, well, I've got nothing against Rhona Prince of Thieves, okay, but she does scream a lot. But towards the end, even though she's a wonderful actress. Mary Stuart Masterton, I think it is Mastertoni. Anyway, so nothing against any of the version Marion, but this one's very more proactive. She's a healer, but she's willing to fight if needs be. Right. However, this is interesting. This is something I've never ever read. This is after they get Little Martin back. Is they find out what King Richard is. Yes. Now this is very, very new. Now think of all the Prince of Thieves. King Richard comes back. Hold, I speak. Okay. This is Richard being held hostage in Austria. Now, I haven't got the internet up here, so I can't check if there's any truth to this. However, King Richard being held hostage in a castle in Austria, that's different, right? That is very, very different. So what they decide to do is shoot the horses with gold and go over there and rescue Richard and Lionheart themselves. That actually happens very, very briefly. It doesn't actually go there, get him there, and they bring him back. Okay, here you go. It was God graces that brought us together. Okay, because Tuck went on a pilgrimage to Canterbury, right? It was God graces that would take us overseas to Austria to pay the ransom and bring our king out of his captivity. It will have his master home, and we should have our king back in his throne. Justice will be at last in this land, right? So that's how they rescued King Richard, right? And the thing is this. Now, normally, King Richard comes in, hold, I speak, yes, Scottish accent, Sean Connery. Actually, Sean Connery was paid £250,000 for that cameo, and he donated it all to charity. So, full respect to him. So, anyway, so you expect King Richard, Richard the Lionheart, this is a man of mythos, okay, to be come in, fantastic ruler, take over, get rid of Nottingham, get rid of Prince John. He's indifferent. This is a nicer version. This is the man they raise a glass to. God bless King Richard. When he finally met Richard the Lionheart, for want of a better word, he's a dick. You do not expect this in a retelling of Robin Hood. That's what I liked about it, the subversion. Okay, right. I'm not born a King Robin. Had he lived, my older brother would have been king in my place. I did not want the crown. I'm a soldier. Never happy in a fight, and no cause is more dear to me than the capture of Jerusalem. How else does a soldier fight his way into heaven unless he fights for God? I was not made a comfortable count for the niceties of diplomacy, nor the machinations of ambitious ministers and councillors. Right. But the thing is, Richard the Lionheart comes home, he gives Robin his just reward, okay? He hears exactly, okay, what Prince John the Sheriff been up to. He's not happy about it, of course not, okay? But is this, after they get Richard, okay, and they finally bring him home, one thing I absolutely love is the kind of subversions that have been going on as well. I mean, one thing I absolutely appreciate, this book had the guts to do this, okay, right? And this is when Richard is reunited, okay, with Prince John, right? Once before you were shown mercy, said the king, never again. These last few days I lived with the outlaws. I've heard all the stories. I go to fight a holy war for God and country. When I'm gone, men like you play the petty tyrant. You thief from the people, you pillage, you corrupt, and you do it in my name too. You're going to burn down my forest and massacre these brave people who are so despised by you, so maltreated. The holy book says you eat what you sow. For an hour, you should be hung by the neck like a common criminal you are. Not a man, not a woman, not a child in the country, nor in this world I think will mourn your death. Taken to the gibbet, okay? But it's Mulch the miller's son, okay, who's basically the sheriff set fire to his home. Robin Hood promised me his death, then it's yours. So Mulch actually kills the sheriff. Interesting take. Very, very interesting take. And also what happens next to Robin Hood is that Robin Hood, okay, Prince John is still left alive. King Richard is back, hopefully okay, to actually become the king his country needs. It does not work out that way, okay? And the thing is this, so Robin goes to London with his family, leaving Nottingham, okay, to become part of the king's kind of entourage, okay? He's, he's court, right? And it drives Marion insane. Now remember, Marion is an albino, okay? Martin, her son, he's not inherited that condition, but, okay, it's a genetic thing, so, but the thing is this, right, Robin thought that in London he would pine for the open skies for the trees, but he did not. He and his family lacked for nothing. They had the best few servants, fine clothes. Their house was warm. They those at first who mocked the country ways and country talk, but never more than once. When I was learned to the way they were fettered like royalty themselves. Marion saw at once that Robin was liking it far too much for his own good, but said nothing, hoping that the newness of it all would soon wear off. I like Robin, she longed for the simplicities of Sherwood. So, okay. But the thing is, when it comes to Richard the Lionheart, Richard, to come back to actually run his kingdom, he's not, okay? He's brought Robin to London because he's heard what Robin's done again in training his May men, and he's going to go back to Jerusalem, okay, to try to take the capital, to take the Holy Land, and this time, okay, he wants Robin's May men to be there. Yes, that's the thing, right? And he doesn't care about England. Here you go. That's the thing, this crushing reality, okay, of the indifference of Richard the Lionheart, which is very, very rarely even covered in books like this, right? He needed 2,000 good men. He wanted Robin to recruit them and train them. He needed to raise taxes for the campaign. But the people had been taxed enough for foreign war, sire. They need the king at home, right? You stick to what you're good at, Robin. Find me soldiers, train them as well as you trained your outlaws. That's all I ask, okay? And, but the thing is, his exploits in Sherwood, his rescue of his king were talk of the taverns. Among the courtiers, though, he was just a jumped-up common forester with a white-haired cargot for a wife. But all the same, a man to be wary of and to flatter, for he was close to the king. But in the end, Robin has actually had enough, okay, and says no to King Richard. And Richard's like, well, fine, you go back to Sherwood, I take Jerusalem myself. So King Richard's devotion and thankfulness to Robin was very, very short-lived. Once again, I like the subversion. Okay, here we go. Right, I'll go back to the woods. Then go back to the woods for all I care, cried the king. I take Jerusalem without you. And he turned on his head and walked away. So, and in all this, Marion actually leaves Robin. She's had enough of his shenanigans, waiting for him to come to his senses. But it takes, when they go to the Abbess of Kirkleaf, right, who is the sheriff's sister and Guy of Gisbourne's lover, she actually poisons Robin. Okay, Robin goes ill on the road, and in the end, he's actually poisoned. That's how he dies. And he does the favour of shooting an arrow out of the window, and where that lies, bury me, which is where an acorn was put there, which grew to a massive tree, which then was felled into the future. So it ends with the boy. We're going back to the future now. Robin's reincarnation, Robin's direct descendant, the ambiguity of that. He reburies the skull, he reburies the objects, he actually plants an acorn which starts to grow again. Right, he's going to take that secret to his own grave. Right, here you go. Right. I heard something that was not the stream. The trees seemed to be whispering the wind, but there was no trees and there was no wind. Son of Marion, came the whisper. Son of Robin, God bless, God bless. And then I remembered my dream, every bit of it, and never forgotten it. Right. So, yeah. So it ends with the tree growing again over Robin Hood, and of course his legend still surviving. And credits for the choppy editing here. I really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really clever, okay, how constantly every single version of Robin Hood has everyone raising a glass to King Richard. Once you finally meet King Richard, he's indifferent. He's a terrible king. In the end, Robin leaves to go back to Sherwood, but he dies on the way and never gets to make his way home. Very, very clever subversions. I liked Marion not being an albino, and also Marion just walking away from Robin when he was getting so corrupted by London. Robin is flawed, and I like that about him. I liked how flawed and real these characters are. I appreciated the subversions. For a children's book by Morpurgo, who I've actually met, is a top bloke, I really, really enjoyed Outlaw. I thought it was very, very clever. And so, apologise for the choppy editing, and I'm signing off here. Bye now.